Hey y'all, welcome back to Convos with Bree. I'm Bree, BREE, and today is day 74 of the Visibility Challenge. I am just waking up and my brain is a little foggy, but today is the third day that I have been writing about this and progressing through some realizations that I had while learning this lesson. And the reflection that I wrote today is called Love Doesn't Require Self Abandonment. One of the craziest things for me was when I stopped letting people just be mad and hurl things at me unnecessarily and trying to weather every storm with them. I started doing this thing where I would say, I love you, but this conversation doesn't involve me. This is you and you. I'm available when you want to have a building conversation about this, not when you just want to blame. And at first, I felt absolutely treacherous. Like, I could not believe I was leaving them. I almost sometimes, like, would want to laugh only because I was so uncomfortable walking away from those moments and using my words in those moments, and I didn't know what to do, so I literally sometimes would laugh because I felt so awkward, which would make them more mad. But that was one thing that I realized is when someone makes me really uncomfortable, I didn't have a very good grasp on how to sit in that without being without showing that I'm having a tough time, without, like, upsetting them more because my reaction was weird. But I was so uncomfortable, and I was really struggling to not take these things on personally. Even when I knew there was no truth to it. Like, I hear this all the time where people will say, if somebody came up to you and yelled at you and they said, "You're purple," you wouldn't get upset because you know you're not purple. The only time you really get upset is when you know there's some truth to it. But for me, at that point in time, if somebody came up to me and yelled at me and said, "You're purple," I would literally be looking at myself going, "But I'm not purple." But my thoughts would go, "But am I purple? And I don't realize I'm purple? Am I missing something? Is is purple something else?" Like, I was so far away from being able to just trust myself because I looked to outside sources for everything back then, and I couldn't see that at all. So there were a lot of times when somebody would be yelling something at me that I didn't feel was true, but I felt it must be true and that I'm missing it, that I really am hurting them, that I really am making them feel this way. This is my responsibility. And it wasn't until I started removing myself from those spaces and taking time to process my actual feelings about what was happening. Did I genuinely feel there was any truth? What did I see happening? And I started doing this really beneficial tool for me where I would picture myself in the therapist chair, and then I would picture myself on the couch with my partner arguing or with whoever it was I was in the argument with. And I pictured the two of us sitting on the couch talking the way we were currently talking to each other. And then I would flip and I would look at, how does that look? How would that look to a therapist sitting in the chair, objectively watching us? No background, no judgments, just observation. And I started seeing a lot of areas where I wouldn't like what they were seeing about me. It started off like, oh, they were going to think my partner or the person that I'm arguing with was so out of line here. They weren't going to even look at me. And then I started thinking, no, they're going to look at you too. What would they see? And when I started doing that, I really started catching myself going, ugh, if I really had that third impartial party here, I would not be reacting this way. Or I would be catching myself and changing my tone and changing my tune a lot faster because that doesn't feel great. And I started allowing myself space and time and awareness to see what it was I wasn't loving about my own reactions. And then I started noticing that when I would get triggered, when somebody would be yelling something at me that it didn't feel true, but it made me want to defend it because, like, how could they think that was true? That's when I started really going off the rails. That's when I started really escalating and not being able to stop it. So the more I allowed them to yell at me, the more I allowed myself to trigger, and the more the situation is allowed to now amplify and escalate because nobody is keeping things calm here anymore. I am no longer doing anybody any favors by sitting in that room. I have now shown up as war Bree. Like, I am ready to destroy you, to burn this mother down. Like, that's not good for anybody. But for a long time, I felt so much power there because I was constantly in my life having people that had more power than me, that were bigger than me, that were higher up than me, taking advantage of me. So when I could take my little self and make it big and take somebody out with my words, I could stop them dead in their tracks. I felt so powerful. And it was doing something for all the pieces of me that felt all that just unjustified responses, unjustified reactions, all that big negative, mean energy that I had felt from one place or another for the entirety of my life. I didn't want that anymore. And so, somewhere along the way, my circuits switched, and my circuits said, this person is trying to exert power over you. You must defend yourself ruthlessly, or they will gain power over you. What I didn't realize, though, was that in those situations, they were still gaining power over me because they were still remaining in my thoughts. I was still replaying it. I was thinking about what I could have done differently, what I could have done more, what I could have done a little less of, where I went too far, where I didn't go far enough. And I was still getting caught in these loops. I wasn't actually helping myself. It just felt more powerful than the alternative of just letting it happen, listening, trying to say the right thing, trying to do the right thing, trying to help them, whatever it looked like. But then I just started walking away, y'all. I just started saying, "No, this isn't for me. If this is how the conversation is, I would rather not be a part of it." And I meant that. I meant that in my soul. And I started walking away from a lot of conversations. And the minute that the energy started amplifying in a let me tell you kind of way, or like a I am right kind of way, I just went, "Oh, this energy isn't for me. Let's resume when it doesn't feel like this." I didn't even explain sometimes. Sometimes I just said, "Oh, I gotta go." I just headed on out of the conversation. Sometimes I would have someone that kept following me and kept trying to talk at me while I was not wanting to participate. And I would tell them, "Hey, the energy is not good here. I need you to take a beat, go take some breaths, figure out what's going on, and find a nice way to have this conversation with me. And then I'm open. But I'm not going to have it like this." And they would just keep going. And I'm actually very lucky because I have substantial hearing loss. So really, if I don't want to hear it, I can turn away from somebody. I can just not listen. And that has saved me a lot of times. But sometimes people are just insistent and they get in my face and they will not let me leave. And in those moments, I had to hold that boundary and I had to not trigger and not escalate the situation while keeping that boundary. And they were not listening. They were not being very cool about it. But I just held my ground and I refused to look and I refused to listen. And I kept moving and I got myself out of the room. I got myself away from that energy and what was happening. And sure enough, every time they had a beat to just sit and think about it and to understand quietly what was happening, they didn't come back so angry. They came back knowledgeable. They came back wanting to talk it out. They were emotional, but it was more like they put the heavy bag down and they felt the relief of the weight off of them. And that just like allowed the dam to break. Everything that they had been running from and trying so hard not to feel, they felt all at once. And that I can be in, that I can be there with you, that I shine there. I shine at letting you feel your moment. And I shine at sitting with that kind of release, that kind of internal chaos. I understand. That's where we can do some real work. We can change. We can see things differently. That's where we come to life more. And I understand that so deeply and have done so much work there that I will weather any of those storms. I will sit, I will breathe, I will feel the energy in that room. But anger is so tightly wound. And anger is such a scary place because when you're feeling the emotion of anger, you can't always control your reactions. And that is where people tend to do a lot of things that they regret, a lot of things that they can't take back. They do a lot of damage in anger. And I just don't have the room to take on all this unnecessary anger, because once we can get past the angry layer, which I look at as a very surface level, it is a very obvious, very understandable layer of this, but it doesn't really do any good. You could argue that it does. I know the stances behind it, but it's not done the best way that it could be done. There are other ways to do that. There's other ways to access that power that comes from anger in building ways. And that is where I am now. I am on this very peaceful path where I can meet anyone where they are. But if somebody wants to throw it at me like it's my fault, I don't need to sit in that anymore. And I don't need to take that on in any way, shape, or form. And if somebody can move through it with me quickly, awesome, fantastic. And if not, they have some stuff they need to figure out on their own first. And I have accepted that I am not the person for everybody. And that's okay. If I am for you, I am for you. You will burst down. I can't talk. You will burst through walls. You will change things. You will shake things up so fast that you will be looking at yourself completely different by the time we're done with one convo. I've seen it time and time and time again. You will start building. Those seeds will grow. You will understand yourself. But if I am not for you, you will resist with every ounce of your cellular being. You will make sure that that comes true. Your brain will look for proof that I am not for you, and you will make it true, because that is what we do. Our brain looks for truth in what we believe in about ourselves, about being alive, about healing, about resistance, about all of it. And I understand this so deeply now that I can let it off of me. I don't have to carry this around anymore. This is not my storm to weather. And the reflection that I wrote, love doesn't require self-abandonment, really put a bow on what I have been learning through letting people weather their own storms and walking away when I feel that I need to. And as I was writing this reflection, the invisible sentence that I was believing was that if I really genuinely care, I have to stay through every emotional storm. And instead, I deliberately chose to switch that invisible sentence, that invisible belief, to one that works with me. And that is, I can love someone deeply without caring what was never mine to hold. I can love them from afar. I can love them closely. I can be there how I can be there. But it was time for me to start being true to myself and showing up how it felt the best to show up for me. And it was time for me to allow myself the freedom to say no, to walk away, to tell them they needed to reroute the way they were speaking to me, to be true to myself. Because I show up peaceful. I show up ready to build every time. And I deserve that back. I deserve people that are ready for me. I deserve people that understand what a valuable resource I am. I understand that I was holding myself in this loop. I was holding myself to these limits by not using my voice, by not setting boundaries, by allowing myself to believe that not staying to weather every storm was proving that I didn't love them the way that I said. Instead of believing that I can love somebody deeply without caring what isn't mine to hold. I was doing everyone a disservice. I was succumbing to learned reactions. I was triggering. I was staying stuck. I was keeping myself from being able to help others in the way that I truly can and the way that I truly am here to do because I was making it personal. It was affecting me personally. And that's not what I was here to do. Once I set down all the expectations and I just got honest with myself about what I need and what feels good and what doesn't, and I honored what felt good and I got away from what didn't, it allowed the space for people to rise up, for people to meet me where I am. I don't have to meet everyone where they are. I can wait for them to be able to meet me where they can meet me. I can continue living while knowing if it's meant to come back together, it will. I don't have to sit around stopping my life while I wait for them, no matter who it is. I can give them space to be themselves and I can trust whatever is meant for me won't miss me. Whatever is for me will catch back up. We'll even back out. We'll find our way back together. It could be quickly. It could take a long time. It is out of my hands. All I can do is meet myself where I need to be met more often. And the more that I do that, the more beautiful things align and come together within and externally. And the more that I work on myself, the more that my people seem to end up riding that same wavelength. They end up diving in deeper, whether they wanted to or not. They end up seeing things that they just simply cannot ignore any longer. And they end up thinking and changing more than they even set out to do. And we come back together and we have beautiful conversations and we evolve and we grow together. And it makes our relationships deeper. It makes life feel more enriched. Yes, it is uncomfortable for a portion of time, but that's where the alchemy truly lives, I believe. It is in all the lessons. It is what builds when we give it time, when we give it space to actually all come together. And then we understand it and we embody the alchemy and we become what that magic was made to do all the time. That becomes who we are consistently. And when we find ourselves slipping, we catch it. We're aware. We learn more. We process more. More alchemy enters our bones, our muscles, our cells. We grasp the understanding of our own responsibility in our lives, in our roles, in our conversations, in our relationships. And everything starts to flourish. Everything starts to feel better. Walking away felt like the worst thing I could do, but it was truly the best thing that I could do. And it allowed everyone around me to start taking responsibility for themselves, for their journey, for their reactions, for their thoughts. And it allowed all of us to pull back layers we didn't even know we were capable of pulling back. Everything changed. Everything grew. We all started to feel whole again, like we were home again. And that discomfort didn't stay forever. Mm. All right, y'all. If you want some more of this, you want the reflection questions, pop on over to convoswithbree.com. You can check out the reflections. And like I said, this one is called Love Doesn't Require Self-Abandonment. And it doesn't. It truly, truly doesn't. All right, y'all. Let's make this a beautiful day. And let's just really get honest with ourselves. Find one place that you can open up with yourself about. One thing that has or has not been working. And if you want a deeper dive, hit those reflection questions. Let me know what you come up with. I love to hear from y'all. And let this sink in. Let this process be here now.